Is the English version. Prince Harry, the past is ever present. So, what do you call people that for them the past is always present? Traumatized. Now, look at his wife and look at her. She came, she was a teenager basically when she got engaged to his father, and she's 36. She came from British culture where you're not allowed to talk about emotions. She's American and she grew up in California. She was uneducated, working as a kindergarten assistant. She has a degree in international relations, and yet she somehow channels her. She even, at one point, she even says, the way she used to do. And there was just so much of her mannerism. I've read somewhere that she even uses Princess Diana's perfume. So I would say to Harry, Harry, you've been had. This was for me the biggest con artist I've met. Maybe ever. I'm not sure. I didn't want to live anymore. This, I'm sorry, but you could go to a therapist. Your mother is a therapist. And to compare this and that, there's a big difference between being 20 and being 36. And what really irritated me is in a world where so much is going on, so much misery, there's not one word of gratitude. And also, Harry, I had a horrible childhood. Sorry, didn't you have like nice things? Didn't you travel? I've seen scenes of him as a child with his mother in an amusement park. I mean, not every child gets his childhood like that, spent traveling, going to amusement parks, doing fun things with his mom. And, oh, my son has such a better childhood, but your son is disconnected from his cousins, from his family on both sides. I mean, a child that grows up without families, it's a little bit sad, I have to say. I really encourage my children. One side is not functional, but the side that has cousins, meet them, even if we're not in a good terms because we are divorced. I encourage everyone to try to have relationships with their family because it's part of who you are. And a child that grows up in a sort of like bubble, only surrounded by very wealthy people. A little bit of tidbit about Oprah Winfrey. Do you know that Oprah Winfrey actually carries avocados when she travels because she doesn't want to spend money buying them? And she has an orchard. So she says, why should I buy avocados when I have them? So for all the people praising Oprah Winfrey as an amazing human being, what kind of a human being takes avocados in her bag because she doesn't want to spend the money buying them? So what if you have an orchard? I have an orange grove, so I'll take oranges wherever I am. I mean, I don't have one. I'm just saying. Let's say I have orange trees or lemon trees, so I just go around with lemons when I travel. So this is definitely not an interview where you take lemons and make them lemonade. All the lists of hardships and okay, let's talk about racism. All right, that's something she didn't endure. Racism. All right. They ask you what color your son will be. Well, your mother is very dark skinned, your father is light skinned. How is it racist to just say, oh, I wonder what color he will be? Is there anyone who didn't wonder that? Genes are very interesting. So it could be just an insensitive, stupid question, like people ask all sorts of stupid things. But having said that, you didn't like how you were spoken to. You're a big girl. Tell them, I'm 36, I'm a graduate with international relations, and you don't know she's having culture clash when she's coming from America to England. I mean, it's the same language. I mean, are you going to have a culture clash when you come to Canada? In America, also, there are certain protocols when you visit the White House or whatever. So what you do is you inform yourself. I mean, let's say you had to write a paper about meeting the Queen of England. You research it. And today, all you have to do is go on Google, which is, don't tell me you don't have internet. They blocked your internet. For me, it was just a pity party, and anyone who praises this pity party um, is probably doing their own pity party. So I think it's kind of disgusting the way very wealthy people, it's not just the money, it's the opportunities that these two people have. And to say, I had such a horrible childhood. I mean, were you beaten? Were you abused? Yes, losing your mother is horrible, but you know what? Welcome to the club. There are a lot of people that don't have parents as children, and yet they don't talk about it how many years later? And how are you going to find the energy to raise your children if you're constantly thinking about the past? Living in the past is not very good for your mental health. And sharing that tendency with other people doesn't make it better. Taking a mental illness and putting it all over the news doesn't make it not a mental illness. That's one thing. The second thing, I want to end with a quote by the Danish philosopher Kierkegaard, who said, life can only be understood looking back, but it can only be lived looking forward. So I'm sorry, but this is just a bunch of con artists trickery intended to have us feel sorry for them. And what is the point? I think it is getting an audience for their Netflix show, because I don't know if she can sing, or Harry definitely can't sing. So you need to have something. So cheap gossip is a good way to sell their show. I mean, they're all over every newspaper. We're not talking about real news. We're not talking about what's going on in this place called Myanmar, where people are being shot. We're not talking about child brides in Nepal or other places. We're talking about her. The difference between them, let's talk about difference between these two. Clothes, look, she has the same mannerisms. Difference. She was younger, she was older. I mean, she died at the age that she began the relationship with Harry. Educated private schools too. University, no university. Helping poor people, going towards people that are stigmatized by society, breaking barriers, handing out school supplies when schools are closed. Let's talk about other differences. Couldn't find anyone that she could actually form a bond with. Found Harry, chained him to her, betrayed by her husband, betrayed the husband's family. Shouldn't have done the interview. And so, killed in an accident, wasn't wearing a seatbelt, living a happy life in Hollywood. Telling people how she really felt, lying and making up stuff. Like her father didn't pay for education, etc., etc. Disconnected from her family, invited the family, even though the family was very abusive. So that's the difference. She has a heart that's full of forgiveness. She has a heart full of anger and accusations. So I don't see why she would think that they're similar in any shape or form. As for the racism claim, you could be a leader in speaking against racism rather than to, oh, somebody said something to me. As a person that also a minority that does sometimes hear racist talks in Europe, what you could do is to speak against it, and you become an activist against racism. You don't just say, oh, look what happened to me. You make it not just about you, but about the world. And this is what Diana did. She didn't just make it about herself. She took her tendency to feel sorry for herself and felt sorry for other people. And this is something that she died at 36, and she was already on a process. She was already on a road to working on herself and focusing on on doing good. She's 36, and I'm so sad that I don't see that process going on. I just see a process of becoming a celebrity, which is the worst thing you can become, because it's fame without anything to back it. It's just people that are famous because they're famous, and that's it. And this is a person who's famous for doing a lot of good things in the world. So this is my talk about the interview. And I think if you're in a beautiful place near the beach, you should be focused on that too. And gratitude. I would have liked to hear gratitude, maybe from both of them. I mean, she had a good life. She had a good life. Why don't you say, I have a good life? What is so difficult about expressing gratitude, especially since it comes from British taxpayers, or from people who buy the newspapers, or from people who watch this show and the interviews? So can you say thank you? And yeah, at least she raised one son who's able to say thank you and has a nice wife. And here's a green-eyed monster. You really have to say bad things about William's wife, who does so much good. I can't even begin to say enough good things about Kate. Her photography has been used to promote all sorts of issues, topics, even the Holocaust, taking photos of Holocaust survivors. What have you done for the world? And this woman was for doing good. So one son followed the path, the other just decided to talk about how sad he is. I wonder if they'll ever be released from the past, because as far as I see it, they weren't prisoners of the royal family, they're prisoners of their own minds. And as Bob Marley sings, release yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. So that's the point. The slavery, the abuse is in our minds. And who said it? I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt who said that nobody can hurt you if you don't allow them. So if you don't give them permission. And this is my message to the world. Thank you.